Hello again, my little conscripts, and welcome to another Mordian Glory video. In today's episode, we shall be deep diving another 10th edition Imperial Guard datasheet. And this time, we will be returning to Cadian with the Cadian Command Squad. Any good Guard army is built on its officer core, and command squads are a backbone of that core. They not only bring lots of weapons, but they've also act as force multipliers with their orders and their abilities. And the Guard has got access to 3 different kinds of command squad now, and so it's important to know the differences between each one because they each bring something pretty different to your army. And even though the Cadian command squad did exist in the index, it has changed in a few, but some key ways. So without further ado, let's fix bayonets and charge right into this thing. Let us begin with a cheeky gander at the Cadian Command Squad's stat line. Firstly, we have got the Cadian commander himself, that is the officer, and they have got a movement of 6, toughness 3, 5+ save, 3 wounds, leadership 7, OC of 1. For all intents and purposes, this is a guardsman profile, except the chap has got a couple of extra wounds and 1 less OC. One thing you're going to want to bear in mind is that the Cadian commander does not have an invulnerable save. If you're a veteran guard player like me, you often forget this because they used to get refractor fields, they used to get a 5+ invuln. They don't have that anymore. That does make them pretty squishy. And to be honest, Guard officers, they're not combat powerhouses, they are force multipliers. This guy might nobble an enemy or 2 in melee, he might kill 1 or 2 at range, but this isn't a Space Marine captain, this isn't, and it sounds obvious, it's not a Primarch or anything like that. This is a command squad, and fundamentally it is made up of humans. They're pretty squishy, so you're going to want to give these guys some bodyguards, probably a big blob of like 20 Cadians for them to be protected by. Now, this being a command squad, it doesn't just consist of the Cadian commander. As you can see, we actually have 1 Cadian commander and 4 Cadian veterans. Each one of those Cadian veterans has got movement 6, toughness 3, 5+ save, 1 wound, leadership 7, and OC 1. Now, one thing that I do sometimes see new Guard players make the mistake of is they think that this is like 1 wound between like the 4 guys. No. This stat line is applied to each one of those Cadian veteran guardsmen. So each man is movement 6, T3, 5+ save. Each man has 1 wound and then leadership 7, OC 1. That means in total, the Cadian command squad has got 7 wounds because you've got 4 in total, 1 for each of the Cadian guardsmen, and then you've got another 3 from the Cadian commander. But what do all of these models come equipped with? Well, it is actually fairly prescriptive with the Cadian command squad. The Cadian commander starts off with a las pistol and chainsword. You have 1 Cadian veteran guardsman who also comes with a las pistol and chainsword. From now on, we're probably going to refer to this as the special weapon guy, because as you'll see later on, he doesn't keep that las pistol and chainsword. And then we've also got a Cadian veteran with the Master Vox, and we've got a Cadian veteran with the Medipack, and we've got a Cadian veteran with the Regimental Standard. A lot of these are kind of crappy. Some of them we are stuck with, but by the time we're done with all of our war gear options, we're going to have a much improved loadout over what they come with as standard. So let's begin with the Cadian veteran with the Regimental Standard. Now, you can keep him with his lasgun and standard and close combat weapon, or you can actually swap out the lasgun and the Regimental Standard for a special weapon, where you can go for a flamer, a grenade launcher, a melter gun, or a plasma gun. If you were to do this, I would recommend going for the plasma gun or the melter gun. I wouldn't bother with the grenade launcher or flamer. Generally speaking, melters and plasmas are just better overall. They've got more AP, they generally do more damage, they generally have good enough strength anyway. So yeah, I would go melter or plasma. Big if, I was getting rid of the Regimental Standard. However, I think you want to keep the Regimental Standard. 2 reasons. Firstly, it's cool. Flags are cool. An army marching under loads of banners is very striking on the tabletop. Secondly, the regimental standard unlocks the war gear ability, which gives every model in the unit +1 objective control. Now, not only does that apply to the command squad itself, but it also applies to the Cadian shock troops that this command squad should be leading. That means your Cadian shock troops go up to OC3. That makes them incredibly OC intensive, gives you fantastic primary game. It means that sometimes you can have as little as 2 Cadian shock troops on an objective, and that can flip it because it's OC6. And a lot of elite infantry like OC5 in total, between like OC1 each, so 5 models OC5. So I really like the regimental standard because it makes your line infantry good at their fundamental job, which is to dominate primary game. So I wouldn't change it. If you're going to, melt a plasma, but I wouldn't. We've then got special weapon guy. This is the Cadian veteran who starts with last pistol and chainsword. Now we can replace his last pistol with the bolt pistol or plas pistol. Always go for the plas pistol. I mean, if you just look at these stats, bolt pistol's like 1 strength 4 attack. The last pistol's like 1 strength 3 attack. Plas pistol, you can overcharge this bad boy and it gets up to strength 8, -3, damage 2. Always go for that plas pistol. You can then also, it's a bit weird because it's like split apart. You can see it's like it goes like Cadian veteran guardsman, then commander, then back to veteran guardsman, then back to Cadian guardsman. It's like yo-yoing. But this bit applies to this model, and then this bit here also applies to special weapon guy. All right. Now you're gonna want to swap his chainsword out because the chainsword is pretty bad, and you can swap it out for a special weapon. Again, don't bother with flamer. Don't bother with grenade launcher. Some people might think I'm being a bit harsh on the grenade launcher because it is a pretty decent weapon, but I always think plasma and melter is better. First choice. Melter gun, plasma gun, whichever one you go for, it kind of comes down to personal preference. Melter gun has the potential to do more damage, but it's very short ranged. Plasma gun has more shots and has a longer range as well. I tend to default to plasma guns first if I'm trying to be as competitive as possible, and then melter guns second. One thing I would mention though, whichever one you go for, it should match if you swapped out your regimental standard. So if you swapped out your regimental standard for a melter gun, special weapon guy should get a melter gun. If you swapped it out for a plasma gun, special weapon guy should have a plasma gun. If you didn't swap it out and went for just keeping the regimental standard, I would go for plasma gun first. Interesting side note here, you can actually swap his chainsword out for a power fist or a power weapon. So you don't go for any extra guns and you go for some more melee. It's definitely a Billy Biggs bollocks choice. Just running around with like double power fist in a command squad. And he's not going to lose out on too much firepower because he does still have that plasma pistol. And then you could think about combining it if you have a big blob of Cadians, like a Cadian Castellan in there as well. And suddenly we've got like 3 power fists in the unit. It's a fun choice. It's not necessarily a bad choice. But I think most of the time you've got to think about this as a shooter unit. And you got to think about going for the gun. But I do like the idea of the power fist Cadian spam. Now we can't do anything with the Master Vox. That guy has to be built with the Lasgun Master Vox and Close Combat Weapon. And the same goes for the Medipack as well. But we do have options around Arcadian Commander. You're going to want to swap out the Las Pistol for the Plas Pistol for all the reasons we talked about earlier. And you're going to want to swap out his Chainsword for Power Fist, because Power Fists are just straight up better than Power Weapons and also Chainswords. If this is your first time looking at these weapons, if you just compare them, the Chainsword might have more attacks, but they're just so low strength. They have no armor penetration, really low damage. The Power Weapon is a bit better because it does have the strength for AP-2, but it's only 1 damage. But literally the Power Fist, it's the same amount of attacks as the Power Weapon, yet it's 2 more strength and double the damage. So always go for the Power Fist if you can in the guard. Now, I appreciate if you are a newer player that all of these options might be a little bit confusing, and I've thrown a lot of stuff at you in a short amount of time. So what I'm going to do is just summarize what I think is the best loadout for your Cadian Command Squad. So if you're building them, you know what to put on your models. So you want to have one guy with the Regimental Standard and a las gun. One guy with the Master Vox and a las gun. One guy with the Medibag and a las gun. You want to have one guy with a plasma gun, and you want to have your officer to have a plasma pistol and a power fist. Now, getting the right loadout for your command squad is important because it is going to give you a little bit of extra firepower in your army. But like I said at the beginning of the video, command squads are force multipliers. They are there for supporting your infantry. And so what is fundamentally more important is not their weapons, but their abilities and their war gear abilities. First up, you have the Voice of Command faction ability, which means you can issue orders, and you can issue one order to one regiment unit. Typically, if you have a platoon of 20 guardsmen or 20 Cadians that is being led by a command squad, then you're going to issue that one order to the unit that you are leading. Infantry can take advantage of so many different orders though. So if you want your Cadians to hit better, you can go for take aim. And I tend to say that take aim is like the go-to order. It's the good old, if you're not sure what to do, cheeky take aim, just do a bit more damage. But it's also important not to overlook things like move, move, move. Because like I said, you want to dump objective control onto objectives. So having an extra 3-inch movement can make it so you do get lots of OC onto the objective. And also, you're going to want to think about your guys surviving. One of the big changes from the Index to the Codex is it's a lot harder for guard to get access to feel no pain rolls on their infantry. And so don't forget about orders like take cover, which will give your guardsmen a 4-up save, and if they have the benefit of cover, that'll actually put them up to a 3-up save, which guardsmen running around in like pseudo power armor is kind of nice. Speaking of the benefit of cover, this is where the new Cadian Command Squad ability comes in. In the Index, this ability meant that your squad was never affected by modifiers. From a damage output point of view, that was actually really nice. You could ignore it if someone was -1 to hit or -1 to wound. But what I often found is that either you didn't really get to take advantage of that because your opponent didn't have any modifiers, or your infantry just weren't doing that much damage anyway. Like, infantry firepower is definitely supplementary. It sort of finishes things off if your tanks don't quite get the job done. But the main job of infantry is to screen. The main job of infantry is to absorb casualties. And the main job of infantry is to get onto objectives and hold them. And so I think the new Cadian Stands ability is much better. Because how it works now is, while this unit contains an officer, each time a range attack targets this unit, if this model is within range of objective mark you control, models in this unit have the benefit of cover against that attack. This is why before I was mentioning like you could have to take cover order, and then you could combine that with the benefit of cover, and you could get yourself up to a 3-up save standing out in the open as long as you're on an objective with a command squad. Now, typically, the officer that the unit is going to contain is going to be the Cadian commander, right? But it is important to note that it doesn't have to be the Cadian commander. If you have got Creed, or if you have got a Cadian Castellan in this unit, it would still trigger Cadian Stance. Now you might think, well, how would that situation arise? Well, you might find that your opponent has got precision, and he is able to precision out your Cadian commander. If you haven't got a Castellan in the unit, then suddenly Cadian Stance just can't work anymore. But if you've got a Castellan in the unit, then technically the unit still contains an officer, the command squad is still part of the unit, and therefore Cadian Stance is still in effect. It's very unlikely to come up. It's a very, very niche scenario, but it is one to tuck away at the back of your mind, and then that 1 in 100 games where it comes up, you'll be ready for it. In addition to the abilities, we've also got war gear abilities. Remember, you only get war gear abilities if you have the relevant war gear. So if you didn't take the Regimental Standard, you won't have this war gear ability. If your Medipack or Master Vox guy dies, then you no longer get these war gear abilities. Now, we've already talked about the Regimental Standard and how important it is for making really OC dense units. So let's focus on the Master Vox and the Medipack. The Master Vox is a really good piece of equipment. It allows the officer to do orders up to 24 inches away. Some of you might be thinking, well, what's the point? Because the Cadian commander is part of this command squad. He's going to be leading his squad of Cadian shock troops. They're going to be right there, right next to each other. They're part of the same unit. So why do I need to order 24 inches away? This isn't really for the Cadian commander. This is for other officers that you can add on to your Cadian shock troops. Because Cadian shock troops can have not one, but two leaders attached. So you can have the command squad, and then you could also have Creed, or a Commissar, or a Cadian Castellan, or the Lord Solar. And the Master Vox works for all officers attached to the unit. So let's take Creed, for example. You've got a 20-man squad of Cadians, you've got a Cadian command squad attached there, and then you've got Creed attached there. The Cadian command squad orders the platoon, but Creed uses the Master Vox to order 3 other units up to 24 inches away. That massively enhances your order network. It massively improves your order flexibility. Suddenly, Creed isn't shackled to being within 6 inches of 3 units, which can actually be quite difficult to keep as those units move around the board. Nope. She can now order those units up to 24 inches away. And this applies to any officer that is part of the Cadian blob whilst there's a command squad in the blob. It's one of the great things with the Lord Solar, because he can do 3 orders, and he can order regiment and he can order squadron, but he doesn't have a Master Vox. Take a 10-man squad of Cadians, put a command squad in there, put the Lord Solar in there, and suddenly the Lord Solar is issuing 3 tanks and 24 inches away. It's really, really strong. In fact, I would argue that the number one reason to take command squads in your army, and the number one benefit they bring to the table, is the Master Vox, because of how it affects the big picture of your army. Lastly, we have got the Medipack. In the index, this used to give us a 6-up feel no pain, and that applied to the command squad and the blobs, the stuff that they were leading. That's changed completely now. Feel no pain is gone, and now at the start of your command phase, if the bearer's unit is below its starting strength, you can return up to D3 destroyed platoon models, excluding characters, to this unit. On average, that's 2 free guardsmen each turn that you can bring back. Now, this doesn't affect your Cadian commander and any other officers that would have joined the unit, but it does affect your Cadian veteran guardsmen, because they don't have the character keyword, and it would also affect any Cadians that were being led as well. Now, a couple of free guardsmen a turn isn't such a big deal. What is a big deal is, firstly, this doesn't just have to bring back lasgun guys. If you've had a plasma gunner that has unfortunately died to a failed hazardous check, he can come back. On top of this, a couple of extra guardsmen could give you up to 6 additional objective control, thanks to the regimental standard. And you want to think about the scale that you can do this on, because there's a good chance it's not just going to be one Medipack that's being activated a turn. You could have multiple command squads. You could have Death Corps Krieg units as well. And over the course of the game, you could definitely get back significant quantities of guardsmen if nearly every infantry in your army is regrowing them if they're not wiped out. But that just about covers everything in the Cadian Command Squad. We've talked about a lot of different things today, so let's bring it all together. The Cadian Command Squad fundamentally is an officer unit, and it's a force multiplier for your infantry via orders. But it's so much more than that. It can really help you dominate your primary game. It can boost the order capability of other officers. It can make your Cadians damn tough to shift off an objective, especially if your opponent is relying on shooting. And on top of all that, it brings a reasonable amount of firepower to the table as well, via multiple special weapons, plasma pistols, and stuff like that. Solid leader choice for your infantry, and honestly, one of my favorites. But of course, all of this is just like my opinion, man. Let me know what you think down in that comment section. Are you a fan of the Cadian Command Squad, or do you think the Krieg and Cadian Command Squads do a better job? And what is your go-to loadout with these guys? Do you stick with that regimental standard, or do you think the extra special weapon is the better choice? If you enjoyed today's video, don't forget to smash that like button and also subscribe to never miss an episode. Would you like to know more? If so, then please consider becoming a channel member or patron. By supporting the channel, not only will you be doing your part, but you'll also be helping me create more content for your viewing pleasure and unlocking a whole host of perks. You get everything from a badge next to your name, custom emojis, but the big one is access to the Mordian Glory Discord server, an online community with almost 2,500 active members. It's always popping off in the MG Discord. We've got channels for army lists, hobbying, tactics, stories, and even a pretty spicy meme section as well. For all you greenhorns that wanted to see the Mordian glory hole, today is your lucky day. And joking aside, I do want to say a massive thank you to all of the current channel members and patrons. You guys are amazing, truly the lifeblood of the channel. I could not do Mordian Glory full time without the incredible and generous support of my members, so thank you guys so much. And last but certainly not least, I want to say a personal thank you to all of my top tier Patreons. These are the War Masters, the people who have truly gone above and beyond the call of duty. So a heartfelt thank you to Alex Dengal, Bon Vert, Lord Pryor, Mark Panconi, RJ Scorpion, Swordfish Trombone, Try Again Bragg, John Stubbs, Nick Walsh, Diesel Fox, and August Barney. Seriously guys, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Your support is incredible and it makes a huge difference. Thank you so much. That's all for now. Hope you've all enjoyed today's video, and of course, as always, see you guys next time.